Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the story about What If Naruto Was Immortal, Naruto X Bleach Part 2. Before I start the video, please subscribe the channel for more fanfiction video and please share this video with your friends. This story was written by Kenshi 618. With any more interruption, let's start the video. 1st Division Headquarters, Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni, the captain commander of all Shinigami in the Gotei 13, was not having a good day. Communications between the squads out searching for the intruders running rampant in the Seirei were few and far between. The small numbers that made the invading group up made it very difficult to pin them down and capture them, thus there were long periods of time in between any correspondence about them. Besides that, the squads that were defeated would have very little to say on the matter once they were found. The good news out of this was that thus far no one had been killed in the fighting. So far the only casualties were a few beaten-up Shinigami, including some of the higher-ups, including 4th seed of the 7th Division Akanzaka Jirubu, a loss that resulted in the loss of his Shinigami powers, a Yasugawa Yumachika, the 5th seed of the 11th Division, and Madarame Makaku, the 3rd seed of the 11th Division. There was also a hostage taken, 7th seed of the 4th Division Yamada Hanataro. The sun was going down and the Ryoka had yet to be cornered and defeated. And now there were screams and the sounds of loud splashes ringing out all over the HQ that he had gotten sick of hearing. What was going on in his Seirei? First all of the happenings with Jin. Then these Ryoka proceed to run circles around his Shinigami. At this rate he would have to show himself and proceed to show the all just how an old school expulsion was supposed to be done. His thoughts were cut short when a loud splash diverted his attention to his balcony overseeing the 1st Division's area, where a large smattering of multicolored paint stained the ground. What in the XXXA? Naruto clone looked up at the formerly pristine white HQ of the 1st Division. What was once a pure, white, clean wall was now looked as if a giant got drunk, drank gallons and gallons of paint, and proceeded to projectile vomit all over the sides of the building. And the poor Shinigami that were outside hanging around when the barrage happened. Well, it was funny to him, and probably to the other clones too, but he was certain that they were pissed. Should I? He asked himself before looking down at the paint cans still surrounding his feet. Well, I have more chakra than the rest and this is my job, so I guess I should dispel doing what I was made to do. He started looking around before picking up 2 cans, number 24. Sail Blue. Always a classic. He threw the open cans of paint at the building and made hand seals. Fuden. Kazegafukiya, wind release. Powerful wind wave. The clone shot a focused spiral blade of wind from its mouth that hit the cans in the air, cutting them open and spreading the paint around sparsely with the backdraft from the jutsu. The clone nodded in satisfaction when the sight of the blue paint hitting the building filled its vision. It took a deep breath. Okay, that's a lot of shots with that jutsu. I think I'm just about done. And what do you think you're doing? The clone turned around to face an old man. He was bald with scars on his head and a gray goatee and had an unassuming look about him as he stood with a cane, but he also wore a captain's haori, so that meant that age or not, this old guy wasn't a slouch. And he was a clone of his original. Picking a fight with a captain would serve absolutely no point except making things worse for Naruto and everyone else that had entered with him. The clone grinned at him sheepishly. I just thought this place could use a little touch-up. It's pretty white and dreary, isn't it? Yamamoto gave no inflection of anger or anything. He just kept staring at the clone, who decided to break the silence. Well, allow me to introduce myself. I am Uzumaki Naruto. Nice to meet you. Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni, the elderly captain said, being courteous to the Naruto clone, captain commander of the Gotei 13 and leader of the Shinigami forces. Naruto clone extended his hand. No kidding. I didn't think I'd meet the guy that ran this place. You've got a nice setup, but your towns outside the walls are kind of under budget, don't you think? He said, commenting on the Rukongai. Yamamoto didn't rise to the attempt at small talk. Why are you here? What do you and the other intruders hope to accomplish? I can't really tell you what the others are here for, that's their business. The clone replied offhandedly, picking at its ear. Why should it have been scared of anything? All that could have happened would have been Yamamoto dispelling it, and it was about to do that to itself anyway. I tell you why I'm here, but I don't even know that myself. Would you simply surrender? The old man asked the rather youthful-looking prankster. This can be resolved without the need for violence. The clone gave him a deadpan look. If we surrender, you either imprison us for life or straight out execute us, so we're not going to do that. And besides, it wouldn't matter if I did that anyway. I'm not even the original. Later, Yamamoto Gigi, the clone said before disappearing in a puff of smoke, confusing the captain. Yamamoto watched the smoke from the clone disperse and then panned his eyes up at the HQ. Were the attacker really there to cause harm to the Seirei? He could have attempted an assassination attempt on him right then and there, or if nothing else at least destroyed the HQ itself. But all it did was paint the sides of the building and a few Shinigami. He didn't quite know what to make of this at the moment. He needed a second to evaluate the overall situation. With that in mind, he made his way back to his office. Now who was he going to get to clean all of this up? XXX. With Naruto 2nd Division grounds. Where did Yoruichi go? He wondered to himself as he continued to flee from the area. It wasn't that he had trouble defeating the Shinigami that had attacked him there and he didn't feel he could win. No, his head clone from the 1st Division HQ had dispelled, and along with giving him a humorous visual that gave him a good laugh, it had also shared his point of view on a certain subject. He didn't want to come off as something that was truly dangerous because he wasn't trying to be. He wasn't here to overthrow the system, kill anyone, or anything like that. He was just bait. Something meant to divert attention away from Ichigo, Shad, Uryu, Orihime, Ganju, and to a lesser extent Yoruichi. Though her leaving him high and dry like that wasn't cool at all. He was supposed to get all of the attention while they slipped past, keeping their fighting to an absolute minimum. If Naruto was perceived as dangerous and a threat, all of the others would be perceived as dangerous and a threat, and that would take the situation to a whole new level of risk. The plan was obviously to remain unassuming for the most part. As long as he was thought to be a mild nuisance, the Shinigami would think the same of Ichigo and the others, as long as they all didn't do something stupid like willingly get into a fight with someone at a significantly high level. XXX. Achoo! Ichigo sneezed loudly before lifting his Zanpakuto to block a strike from a long, segmented sword. Great. I've got to beat this Aburai Renji guy again, and now I've got a cold. How many attacks was that again? Ichigo asked himself before the sword that had attacked him snaked around his defense and cut his shoulder. Gah. The man Renji, holding the sword, had tattoos all over his body, red hair put up in a pineapple-looking ponytail, and a white headband along with the usual Shinigami outfit. You're still weak. Coming here for Rukia was a mistake. You should have just cut your losses and escaped with your life. Ichigo pulled himself up using Zangetsu for support. I don't care what you say, or how strong any of you Shinigami are. I'm going to beat all of you and rescue Rukia, he said before rushing at Renji. XXX. What are the chances that someone like that will even find them? Naruto thought to himself as he found himself running through a wooded area of the 2nd Division grounds. It felt like home for him, so he gladly took to moving along the forested area. The land of his origin was filled with lush forests, and Naruto had always had a like for nature and places like this as he felt more at home there. Jumping through the trees, he never really sensed the quick motion of a Shinigami using Shunpo coming up from his blind spot, only noticing when a hard punch ricocheted off the side of his face and sent him crashing into a tree, felling it with the force he hit it. Naruto picked himself up angrily. All right. Who's the dead man who did that? He was not amused. Someone had actually gotten the drop on him and he really didn't want to leave this person in one piece to tell the tale. He formed a cross-hand seal and in a puff of smoke was surrounded in a circle by a dozen clones. Taiju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Multiple Shadow Clone Jutsu. Keep your eyes open. Naruto shouted to his clones as his attacker wasn't in sight. After a short moment, the clones were all destroyed swiftly by a blur, revealing that Naruto wasn't among the circle of clones. Back a short distance away from where the attack took place, Soifan took cover behind a tree, so that wasn't a simple speed technique, they were all real. I wondered why they weren't moving. Fuden. Senpuken, Wind Release. Whirlwind Fist. Soi Fan ducked from behind the cover of her tree as a blast of wind came from in front of her and hit it, leaving multiple tiny gashes in the bark. As she lifted her eyes after dodging, she let out a gasp as a fist came into her view. She grabbed the arm throwing the punch and jerked it to throw the attacker off balance, throwing him towards the trees where the man recovered in midair and jumped up the sides of a series of trees before coming to a stop on a branch. Naruto gave the woman below a look, sizing her up before speaking. "You fight like a ninja. Just better than those other guys from the HQ I was stuck inside of. That Haori also means you're a captain, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you're Soi Fan?" Soi Fan narrowed her eyes at Naruto. "And you're the Ryoka that assaulted my headquarters so brazenly. I assume you have a death wish, picking a fight with the Onmitsukido the way you have." Naruto shrugged. "No, extenuating circumstances caused me to get discovered while I was there. I was just sightseeing." He gave her a grin. "I've never been to the Seireii before. Could you give me a tour? I'd appreciate it." Soi Fan lowered herself into a fighting stance. "Certainly. I'll give you a lovely tour of our holding cells for prisoners." "As fun as that sounds, I think'll pass," Naruto said, priming his muscles to get ready to move, "mostly because I don't think you'll be there to keep me company if I decide to go. Goodbye, pre-lady. It was nice meeting you." His body then seemed to vanish in an afterimage. Seeing him simply vanish like that brought a wide-eyed look from Soi Fan. "Shunpo? How does a Ryoka that isn't even a Shinigami know that technique?" she said to herself before determinedly deciding to hunt him down and beat the answers out of him herself, before she was remotely contacted. "What? A meeting now?" She looked at where she could still sense Naruto's decently hidden but still distinct Riryoku. "We'll finish this soon, Ryoka," she said before vanishing towards the meeting place of the captains. XXX. 1st Division Headquarters, Captain's Assembly Hall. Yamamoto stood in front of the other captains of the Seireii. It was a good thing that none of them, even Ichimaru Jin, had chosen to comment of the disheveled state of the 1st Division HQ because as far as he was concerned at the moment there was nothing funny about the situation. Right now on the first day of this emergency the 13 divisions are already short one lieutenant. Now is not the time to allow the lower-ranked Shinigami to handle this mission, nor will I question Ichimaru any longer for acting alone earlier. Jin's ever-present grin showed through. "Well, thanks." Yamamoto ignored his rather eccentric captain and continued. "As of now, all higher-ranked officials including lieutenants must have their Zanpakuto with them at all times. You are now allowed to fight at full power. Please inform those that could not be here for the meeting. Everyone, we are about to begin an all-out war. Dismissed." Hearing that Yamamoto had dismissed them all, Soi Fan proceeded to hurry away back to her squad's HQ to relay the message to her lieutenant before leaving again. She had a Ryoka to hunt down. XXX. Hours later with Naruto, Naruto was most decidedly lost. He was certain that he had passed over into a new division's grounds because he had cleared a large wall, but he was still in a forest. Still, he had not the faintest idea where he was. He was going off of the site of the center tower of the Seireii, the place he knew he had to keep away from, but he couldn't do that if he didn't even know where he was. And running away from Soi Fan had lost him his sense of direction. The sun had fallen by now as the moon hung in the sky, unable to be seen from underneath the canopy of the woods. "I can't stop yet," he said to himself. "I need to find some of the others and make sure they're all right. But this place is so large. My clones never even saw them before they dispelled. Oh well, I'm still busy at the moment anyway." Naruto stopped running for a moment and leaned against a tree while standing on a branch, just like old times, running from an invisible enemy in the woods. "She's good, she left and then came back and found me again. So this is a Shinigami captain?" Naruto sighed to himself and suddenly dropped from the branch he was standing on to evade Soi Fan, who appeared behind him and threw a kick hard enough to crack the top half of the tree she kicked. While falling, Naruto reached into his coat and pulled out an unsealed Fuma shuriken that he extended and hurled at Soi Fan while channeling wind chakra to it. Soi Fan jumped down after him and dodged the weapon, allowing it to cut the very top of the tree off. A grin of victory came to Soifan's face as she disappeared using Shunpo and reappeared to deliver a heavy axe kick to Naruto. However, her grin dropped when her target disappeared in a puff of smoke, and in his place was the top of the tree that he had recently cut off. What? I know I hit him this time. She landed on the ground and dodged another Fuma shuriken, the same one that had been initially thrown, prompting her to look up in the air where Naruto was coming down at her with a blue orb of spinning raw energy in his right hand. Rasengan, spiraling sphere. Soifan avoided it as it created a crater on the ground, kicking up dust and debris. From the dust came a series of shuriken flying at her that she was able to duck under and around before proceeding to charge into the dust cloud using Shunpo. Inside the cloud, the two clashed with enough force to blow the rest of the dust away, throwing each other back, both landing on their feet, looking at each other warily. Soifan, still on guard, commented on Naruto's ability. "You're no slowpoke, Ryoka, and those traps you set all through the woods slowed me down. You fight very similar to the Onmitsukido, who trained you." Naruto was in a ready stance, prepared for Soifan to take any opening on him that she could find in their downtime. "I wasn't trained by anyone in your Onmitsukido. I'm not a Shinigami. I didn't even know there were more than one until a week ago. I've got to say, the Shinigami I know of doesn't look nearly as cute as you though," he said, trying to get under her skin for an advantage. It didn't hurt that he was being honest either. "Flattery will get you killed in this battle," Soifan said coldly. "You're very unlucky. The kid gloves are off now. Yamamoto Sutaichu has declared a state of war against you, Ryoka, not too long ago. How unfortunate for you." "Why?" Naruto wondered. He hadn't done anything that bad, had he? He intentionally kept from maiming or killing his opponents and only stuck to petty large-scale vandalism, significant enough to cause problems, but not bad enough to put them in a state of war. "What happened?" "Too many seated officers have been defeated. Even the lieutenant of the 6th Division has fallen to you intruders," Soifan responded. She would have attacked him by now, but even when expressing confusion he never lowered his guard. His body was ready to respond to any move she made. This was a true Hakuda master, but he claimed to not be a Shinigami, so his hand-to-hand style was all his own. "The captains have been requested to enter the battle now, and soon you, Ryoka, will be exterminated." Naruto shook his head. "It's only been a day. If I get taken down inside of this place, it's going to take longer than a day to catch me and finish me off. I'm not losing here." "You don't have a choice in the matter," Soifan shouted as she came at him again. Naruto saw her begin to use Shunpo and made the boar hand seal to prepare his own countermeasure. Jinten. Muisho, swift release. Shadowless flight. Naruto felt his body charged up and felt the world slow down around him, signifying his initiated technique had taken hold. Rapidly turning his head, he saw Soifan coming at him quickly, her body primed for another attack. This woman was no joke hand-to-hand. She was just as physically strong as him despite her petite frame, and with the speed behind her attacks he saw her as a true threat. A full-scale fight, and there was no holding back this time. The first attack from Soifan, Naruto moved to the side and let slide past him, allowing him to rattle off a counter-spin kick that Soifan ducked under, rising back up to unleash a furious set of jabs at Naruto's face that he barely managed to block and dodge. "She's so much smaller than me that she has to get in close in order to have a fighting chance of hitting anything, but when she does, she's so fast I can barely block what she throws." Naruto wound up being tagged by one of Soifan's punches that sent him reeling back. Naruto growled and got back into the fight, pushing more effort into moving his muscles faster and actually doing so, catching Soifan off guard with a hard front kick that sent her flying through the forest. She rolled along the ground and back to her feet, glaring Naruto down. "Faster than you let on, huh?" "Well, so am I," she said before coming at him faster than before. She saw his eyes widen as she landed a hard strike to his face, however he burst into smoke and replaced himself with a log. Soifan turned around, not trying to be caught with the same maneuver twice, and kicked Naruto in the head, however he once again turned into a log. This occurred 4 more times until Soifan found herself surrounded by half a dozen logs, glaring hatefully at the pieces of lumber until she heard a sizzling noise and noticed on a few of the logs a slip of paper burning down. Feeling something wrong, she immediately made to vacate the area, forgetting that she had lost track of Naruto for a moment, and wound up paying for it. The direction she turned towards to flee was filled with the sight of multiple Naruto clones that piled on Soy Fan and held her in place as the tags on the logs finished burning down, finally engulfing the dog pile in an explosion. Naruto watched the explosion from a decent distance, standing atop a tall tree as the smoke from the explosion wafted up above the canopy. No need to be so fancy, playground tactics can work just as well. He narrowed his eyes after a moment, except in this case they didn't. He crouched down atop the tree and focused his eyes on the forest below, trying to scout any motion at all. Come on Soy Fan, get your pretty little ass out here. I know you're not done yet. Don't make me flush you out, he said more to himself than to Soy Fan. XXX from nearby in cat form. Yoruichi was doing the same thing Naruto was doing, standing atop a tree. However, she was watching the progress of Naruto's battle with Soy Fan. She had been all over the Seirei, keeping track of all of the others, and felt that today had been as good a first day as could have been hoped for with the circumstances, but here it could end on a sour note. Naruto was, for lack of a better term, her pinch hitter. He was the ace in the hole in the event of a worst-case scenario, but she wasn't sure how he would do in a battle against a captain, which was the purpose she actually needed him for. He carried himself like a man that had seen countless conflicts, but aside from her short spar with him, she wasn't sure of what he could do. Well, now was the time to find out, and she couldn't have picked a taller task for him to measure up with. Let's see what you're really capable of, Naruto, and let's see how much Soy Fan has grown in 100 years. XXX. Naruto vs. Soy Fan. Naruto was sick of waiting atop the tree. He wasn't foolish enough to believe that Soy Fan couldn't find him. She knew exactly where he was. She was just waiting for an opening to finish him in one move. Well, he wasn't about to just sit there and let her take him down like that. Naruto seamlessly formed 5 Bunshin who dropped from the sky around him into the forest and began searching for Soy Fan. Come on, I know you're there. Take the bait, he said, shutting his eyes to focus on his strategy. The second one of his Bunshin was forcefully dispelled by Soy Fan. Covertly he threw a kunai over in that general direction, getting the noise to alert his other Bunshin who began to head over to corner her. The second another one was dispelled, he did the same before forming more Bunshin and sending them in. He was using them to triangulate Soy Fan's location, and she had no clue. Soy Fan was busy staying hidden inside of the forest, moving ever closer towards Naruto quietly. Ever since escaping his massive explosion, she had been slowly moving towards Naruto, who had taken the high ground in order to find her and engage her once more. He was no rank amateur. The conflict thus far had clearly shown her this, so she had to be careful and engage him on her terms. Then he started littering the surrounding area with those detestable clones of his. After killing one, no matter how quietly or stealthily she was able to do the deed, he would seem to be able to find her and would throw a weapon in her direction which would lead more clones to her. Whenever another one got close, she would keep killing them before she would have to fight an entire army. They simply kept coming, and they were being so intentionally noisy they were exposing her to the original, who was getting closer and closer to tagging her with those throwing knives. She would look through the canopy and swear for a moment his cold blue eyes were piercing right through her. I have had enough of this, Soy Fan thought to herself as the clones found her once again. She formed a burst of crackling yellow energy in her palm before drawing an inverted triangle in the air that formed points of energy at each corner that she fired at the original Naruto. Bakudu number 30. Shidotsu Sansen. Way of Binding number 30. Beak-piercing triple beam. The beam shot off and hit the original, who saw it coming and tried to jump away, but the attack was too fast for him to escape as it caught him and threw him back, looking for a surface to pin him to. But then the Naruto burst into smoke, just like one of his clones. You took your eyes off of the prize, sweetheart, Naruto roared as he dispelled the rest of his clones and rushed at her through the cover of smoke, where he began pummeling her with fists that sent her stumbling back, shot after shot. I'm the greatest ninja ever. You don't underestimate me. Shinigami captain or not, you keep one eye on me at all times or you pay for it. Now let's finish this. Naruto formed 4 cage bunshin around Soifan, who stumbled into one that shoved her, allowing the others to close in and kick her into the air. Uzumaki. The original used swift release to deposit himself above the treetops where Soifan was being kicked up to, somersaulting down to meet her in the air. Uzumaki Naruto Renden. Uzumaki Naruto Barrage. Soifan recovered in the air and maneuvered accordingly to counter Naruto's attempted heel drop with a rising kick that caused the two to clash in the sky. Naruto sprung higher off of the clash of attacks and landed on top of another tree. Soifan landed on an elevated branch, not much lower than his position. I seriously need to go home and buy each one of the visored something special for whipping my ass back into fighting shape. Naruto thought to himself as he found himself staring down Soifan once again, trying not to get enchanted by the serious, yet beautiful face of the female Shinigami captain. You're really good. That's one of my taijutsu finishes. To adjust yourself in the air like that shows incredible dexterity and flexibility. Soifan nodded in acknowledgement. Same to you, Ryoka. You're incredibly hard to pin down. I can see why the lower-level Shinigami had such trouble dealing with you. Only a lieutenant or a captain would be able to deal with you. Naruto wanted to bow in a grandiose fashion in a flirting or teasing manner, but taking his eyes off of this woman would undoubtedly get him killed, so he simply settled for a cheeky grin. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I'm telling you this so that you know the name of the face that will be filling your dreams the next time you go to sleep, he said, drawing a kunai that emerged from his sleeve, holding it in a reverse grip. Why don't we end it here? I don't want to fight, and we seem to be at a stalemate. Soifan smirked. Now that I'm assured of the fact that you're at the very least adequate, I don't have to hold back anymore, she said, finally drawing her Zanpakuto. I'm still not going as fast as I can. Hopefully you can keep up, but if you can't, too bad. Her smirk turned to a sneer. Jinteki Shikusetsu. Suzumaki. Sting all enemies to death. Hornet. Soifan's Zanpakuto transformed from a sword into gold and black gauntlet around her right wrist and forearm that had a small chain linking it to a stinger-like gold blade twice the length of her finger on her middle finger. Feel honored to see my Shikai. Initial release. To my Zanpakuto Uzumaki. Naruto's face fell significantly in mood once he felt her significantly increased Ryatsu. Oh hell. This just got way harder, didn't it? Soifan's response was to vanish in a shunpo again. I thought so. Naruto then replaced himself with a log that was impaled by Soifan's Shikai. Naruto was back in the forest, running rapidly to put distance between himself and Soifan. Kawarimi no Jutsu. Substitution Jutsu. A ninja's best friend for thousands of years. His developing skill at sensing Riryoku came in handy as he felt Soifan quickly closing the distance on him. Goddamn, she's even faster and stronger now, as if she needed it, he said before immediately turning an about face to block a slash from Soifan, who didn't stick around long enough to attack again, choosing to try getting a better angle on him. Damn it, Yoruichi, why'd you make her so fast? Why aren't you down here fighting her? He asked himself as he hit the deck to avoid another sneak attack from Soifan, rolling over and tossing out a handful of shuriken that hit nothing but air. Shit, he thought to himself before he found himself stomped hard into the ground by his enemy. Soifan watched Naruto forcefully release spittle out of his mouth from her stomp. This is the end, Uzumaki. You did well though. She poised Suzumaki for a finishing strike on Naruto. Naruto gritted out a response beneath her heel. A real ninja is never done as long as his hands are free. Naruto's free, weaponless hand produced a kunai from his sleeve that shot at Soifan's head, forcing her off of him and giving Naruto a chance to recover back to his feet, where he immediately lashed out with a slash from his remaining kunai. He missed wide as she effortlessly dodged. Damn it, that's it. My gift from a bygone era. Rinnegan, Samsara I. Soifan's breath hitched slightly when she felt a significant shift in Naruto's power. What a release of Ryatsu. It's so high and refined. Who is this man? This Ryoka has a power on my level. She looked over at Naruto, who had a blue swirling wind surrounding his body, but the truly significant change was the pattern of his eyes. Formerly blue and full of emotion, they were now cold and emotionless. Naruto's stare seemed to pierce into Soifan's soul. Whether that was simply the effect of his Riryoku or something more she couldn't tell. "I hate using this," he said softly. "Its power is awesome, but I hate using it." I understand what the predecessor of this said now. "Every time I activate these eyes, my mind and heart are filled with the memories of the days I've lost, and turning it off nearly drives me to tears each time." He pointed at his eyes. "These eyes are my memento of my loved ones lost." He then pulled at the bandana around his neck with the leaf insignia. "And this is the inspiration that tells me to move along each day. To never forget them, to always remember, but to live the way they would have wanted me to." He closed his eyes for a moment. "But you don't care anything about this, do you?" "I understand," Soifan thought to herself, keeping up her game face. "I understand just as you do what it's like to lose what you think is your entire world. But I must move along as well, for the day that I can be face to face with Yoruichi-sama again, to bring her to justice for her betrayal." In a whip of air, Naruto vanished from in front of her, signifying that it was time to begin again, faster, she thought before doing so herself to meet him in combat. All throughout the forest, the only decisively visible trait there was of a battle going on were the sounds of the air whipping and snapping, and the cuts that would appear on a tree every few moments as they fought all over. Soifan was utterly surprised at his stamina. The number of Shinigami who could move this fast and continue fighting at a high level without becoming winded in the least she could count on one hand. Naruto, on the other hand, was currently kicking himself. The reason being that he couldn't get a free opportunity to use Mokuton would release. He had enough time during his life to experiment with many of the elements he had at his disposal with the use of the Rinnegan. There were many Kekkei Genkai that he couldn't duplicate with the time he was given, but Mokuton was one he had managed to work out. It took a lot of focus for him to do anything using it, though since he had to force it, it wasn't natural. If he took his focus off of Soifan for a moment to attempt a Mokuton jutsu that wouldn't serve much of a purpose due to them being in a forest already, it might have been his last move. She may have had faster feet than he had with her mastery over Shunpo, but Naruto could match her through a combination of swift release and the use of the Rinnegan to keep track of her Ryotsu trail when he couldn't keep a lock on her body itself. As long as he had that, he didn't need to really match her speed. He was fast enough to buy himself enough time to lift his kunai to block her Suzumaki, as he could guess where she would aim would be somewhere on his upper body. They clashed blades and Naruto almost bit down on his tongue when Soifan hit him with a cheap shot using her free hand. He hit her right back off of pure reflex, and the two stopped once more, glaring at each other with blood running down both of their lips. "Why are you in the Seirei? What do you hope to achieve?" Soifan asked before wiping away the blood on her mouth. Naruto shrugged. "I couldn't tell you. I'm just passing through as a favor to a friend. I didn't come to fight, just like I told you. Orders are to put you and the other Ryoka down no matter the cost on sight," Soifan said. "Either by capturing you or killing you. It doesn't matter as long as you are brought down. You should never have come here, Uzumaki," she said sternly. Naruto smiled warmly at her, not taking any offense to her fighting him off of orders, as it was actually a pretty good back and forth between them. "It's okay. You have to do what you have to do. No matter the outcome, I forgive you, my little bee." Hearing him say that triggered something in Soifan, something that Naruto could visibly see as her face twisted angrily before her attacks became more furious than ever. Instead of simply going for his vital points, if she couldn't hit him with her blade, she would attack him otherwise with her lower body. When they would clash and her attack was blocked, she would use her legs, kicking Naruto in the body and face, softening him up and beginning to pummel him much like he did to her earlier. It wasn't about the victory anymore at this point. "No one may call me that. Only she ever called me that," she thought as her attack continued. Naruto was beginning to take a beating. Soifan was seriously tenderizing him with her kicks. She seriously kicked hard, but as long as he wasn't getting stabbed, he would take a few punches and kicks. He was a tough enough guy, right? Hey, that was a lot of blood from a single punch. Naruto thought to himself. Alright. I'm not her personal heavy bag. If she kicks me or punches me again, I'm going to make her see why that's a bad idea. Of course, Soy Fan threw another punch when they got close together and clashed blades. Naruto in response let go of the kunai he was using to block and tucked her blade arm under his armpit, getting a gasp of surprise out of her, and then he headbutted her in the face. A fight knows no gender barriers. A bloody-nosed Soy Fan replied with a quick shot of her knee to Naruto's groin and felt some satisfaction when she felt him tense up and recoil, despite the fact he didn't voice his pain. She drove another punch right into Naruto's belly and did so repeatedly, trying to get him to let go. And he did, just not in the way she had hoped he would. Naruto let go of her blade arm just enough so that when she pulled it back he could latch onto her gauntleted wrist, which he used to grab a hold with both hands on and swing around to throw her harshly into the side of a tree hard enough to fell it. XXX Yoruichi watched the fight with increasing apprehension. This fight is getting very heated. One of them is going to kill the other at this rate. XXX Naruto watched Soy Fan stand up. You still in one piece there, my little bee? He asked, trying to get another reaction out of her. I don't want to break you, but you're killing me here, he said honestly. Yoruichi had a place for this woman somewhere and he didn't want to hurt Yoruichi. For some reason he didn't want to hurt Soy Fan either, nothing sexist about it, he simply liked the girl. Shut your mouth. Soy Fan roared back at him. There's only one person that could ever call me that, and you sure as hell aren't her. She held out Uzumaki out in front of herself. I'm going to kill you in 2 moves, Uzumaki, so get all of your regrets lined up in mind. Naruto was once again fully disarmed and had his fingers twitching, trying to time an opportunity to unseal something else before Soy Fan could reach him. What would be faster, his hands or her shunpo? A slight hitch in Naruto's breath let Soy Fan know he was making his move and she rushed towards him. Come on, give me anything here, he thought to himself as his hand reached the inside of his coat. However, before he could unseal anything, Soy Fan was right in his face and had stabbed Naruto in his chest. The only thing keeping the blade from going too deep was his arm crossing over his chest to reach in his coat. Naruto let out a gasp and finished unsealing a weapon, a massive shuriken that he threw at Soy Fan once she got back out of his range upon seeing his weapon. Naruto threw it at her and watched it pass through an afterimage of her, before he slumped against a tree holding his chest wound. His eyes widened when he saw a butterfly-shaped stamp appear on his wound. What the hell? Nigeki Kesatsu, death in 2 steps, Soy Fan said, her voice echoing out from around him in the forest. That was step 1. Only 1 step remaining, Uzumaki. Goodbye, she said smugly, as if he was already dead and buried. Naruto grit his teeth. I'll be damned. Blood leaked out from his mouth due to his injuries from the stab wound as he clapped his hands together and expanded them, a dark sphere of energy forming in between his hands. I'll be damned if I go out like this. Chibaku Tensai, heavenly body bursting from the earth. He threw the sphere into the sky and watched as it began pulling pieces of the surrounding landscape up towards it in the form of an orb. Parts of the forest and the ground underneath it started getting sucked up towards the ball of gravity. Soy Fan found herself jumping between pieces being sucked up towards what was looking to be a large compressed orb. She was eventually caught between flying pieces of debris and found herself caught between them as she was stuck to the large ball in the air. No, I won't lose. Naruto heard her scream of defiance and let out one of his own. Right back at you, my little bee. Now get out of here. He let his hands drop from using Chibaku Tensai and extended them out away from his body as if he were pushing something up and away. Shinra Tensai. Heavenly subjugation of the omnipresent god. XXX Yoruichi watched as the massive sphere of debris moved away from where it was hanging in the air to high over the Seirei. Oh my god, she said as she watched it hit the barrier above the stronghold and begin breaking apart. She jumped down and began running towards Naruto swiftly. XXX Naruto's hands were still outstretched, holding the Shinra Tensai, pushing the monster ball of debris back into the barrier as if he were trying to punch it through and throw Soy Fan from the Seirei. Blood began leaking from Naruto's nose, but he still held it, using enough force to shove that damn thing up and out of here is killing me. Naruto, stop. Yoruichi bounded up to him and headbutted him in the side. knocking him down and getting him to drop his jutsu. She quickly looked up to see the giant ball drop from the sky as it fell apart to the ground. After getting over her shock, she turned back to Naruto, who was still down, breathing heavily, blood trailing from his mouth and nose as well as from the wound Soifon left. Speaking of the wound Soifon left, upon seeing the butterfly mark still on it, Yoruichi let out a sigh of relief. Okay, she's still alive. Her shock returned when she saw Naruto getting back to his feet despite his injuries and haggard appearance. What are you doing? Are you insane? Stop moving. Can't stop, Naruto said. I can't stay here, I need to leave, before Soifon comes back. If we keep fighting, I'm going to have to kill her, Yoruichi-chan, I swear. He almost dropped to his knee but caught himself. I need to rest. He let out a cough that sprayed blood and let his Rinnegan fade. Where do I go? Yoruichi could see how tired he was. Tsukyoku Hill. There is a cave on the side of the cliff. We need to get you there to rest. It's near the Senzaikyu. Naruto looked at the cat weakly. I can't go there. It's too close, I'll attract attention. It's a secret hideout, stupid. Yoruichi said snappishly before suddenly transforming. I'll get you there. Just hold on to me. Whether he did it so easily and without dispute because he was so tired or because she was naked, she did not know, as she pulled out a long beige bone-like wand that she used as a hang glider once it expanded and took shape, allowing them to take flight. I'll be fine with a little rest, Naruto said softly, ignoring the voice in his head that was wondering just where she got that thing from. Just a good night's sleep and I should be good to go. He insisted as he held on to Yoruichi tightly enough to avoid falling off. Sorry about the blood. Yoruichi let out a small laugh. It's okay. There's a hot spring where we're going. Her face turned somewhat thankful as she looked over her shoulder. Thank you, Naruto. Wah. He said, not understanding why. Why thank me? Yoruichi looked back at the signs of Naruto's fight with Soifon, for leaving her alive, for not actively trying to kill her. She's still very important to me. Couldn't kill. He trailed off, almost losing consciousness. What? Yoruichi didn't understand what he had just tried to say. Naruto spoke slightly louder this time. Couldn't kill her even if I wanted to, Yoruichi-chan. She reminds me of me, back when I first realized how alone I was. Yoruichi looked back at him again to see that he had shut his eyes. She shook her head and continued to fly them towards the hideout. Thank you, she said again to him. Sleep with me. Naruto mumbled lowly. A tick mark appeared on Yoruichi's head. I guess you must be dreaming or something. No dream. He said firmly, yet weakly. Seriously, I want you to sleep with me. And I'm not even joking or trying to be funny, not even a little bit. Yep, she insisted, choosing to ignore his last comment. Just a stupid dream. XXX Soifon pulled herself out of the rubble produced by Naruto's Chibaku Tensei, collapsing and falling from the sky. Her body was covered in cuts and bruises. Her captain's haori was torn and her outfit underneath was rather beaten up as well. She looked around and tried to feel for Naruto's Riryoku but found nothing. With an angry look on her face, she began limping slowly towards the 4th Division headquarters to find someone to heal her. She was not going to let Uzumaki just slide with that lucky break. She had him, and as long as he was in her thoughts, that crest on his chest would not fade, and once Uzumaki touched that mark again, Uzumaki Naruto was a dead man. As long as her will to keep the crest going held, he was one step away from death. This isn't over, Uzumaki. We'll meet again. You won't escape the Seirei and you will fall by my blade. I won't accept anything less than that. You are my target and I will not let you slip out of my grasp. XXX. The next morning, underneath Tsukyoku Hill, Naruto's eyes cracked open to find himself surrounded by bedding in what appeared to be a replica of the training ground under Urahara's shop and the warehouse of the Vizards. He sat up painfully, holding his chest where he was stabbed. Yoruichi-chan. Naruto called out to no one's response. He got up and began walking around looking for the beautiful woman. Come on, Yoruichi-chan, if you're going to leave you've got to tell someone what's going on. Eventually he gave up looking and went to the entrance of the hideout where he made a clone. Stay here in case Yoruichi-chan comes back. The clone saluted him and went back inside. As he looked out from the sheer cliff drop, he thought out loud, "You know, I have a perfect idea of what I could use this place for." He made 3 more Kage Bunshin, who wordlessly ran inside and left him looking down. He shrugged to himself and fell from the precipice to the forest below. He didn't really want to get into any kind of fight today. He had enough of fighting last night from Soi Fan. There was no need for any more anarchy on this day. He didn't need to attract attention now that the worst-case scenario had already happened. They were perceived as a legitimate threat if what Soi Fan said to him last night was true. He had 2 objectives today. First, to find out where the others were, because if they were hurt, caught, or dead, well, they were his only real objective on this mission of his. The second objective was to see how everything was going at large, the big picture. What was going on from the Gotei 13 side of the coin? How were they going to handle all of this? Were they going to send out extermination squads now? He needed to know these things, and he needed to find the others to relay the information. Getting caught and garnering attention would serve no purpose. This was strictly behind the scenes. It was time to show everyone exactly why he was able to exist around the world for as long as he had. And he would do that by not showing anyone anything at all. The only person that might be able to find him would be Soi Fan, and he knew that if he was still feeling the effects of last night, she damn well was also, so he wouldn't have to worry about her for now. It was time to go dark. XXX. After moving about the Seirei for a while, Naruto heard the sounds of another fight taking place nearby. As he neared another squad HQ, he saw a rather small girl with her hair done up in a bun engaging a blonde man with a bang over his eye. What the hell is going on? He wondered to himself as the fighting began. The girl releasing her Zanpakuto at the man. Naruto felt something amiss in the environment, and it seemed to be coming from a sword pinned to the wall. He noticed the multiple Shinigami in attendance had their full attention on the fight between 2 of their fellow comrades, while others looked between the fight and the sword in the wall. Naruto quickly formed the Tiger Seal, hoping that any decent censors either weren't there, or were preoccupied with stopping the fight that was currently happening. Maizigakure no Jutsu. Hiding with camouflage jutsu. Naruto's body turned completely transparent as he snuck around the panic, keeping to the early morning shadows. Eventually finding his way to the roof just as the fighting died down, with a child captain stopping the fighting, Naruto reached down without looking, as he didn't want to risk being seen, and grabbing a hold of the sword in the wall. Taking a Shinigami's Zanpakuto was no small task, even against the weaker ones. They kept a hold on them religiously. Naruto felt an influx of reishi running through the sword and looked around, just seeing nothing and the feeling of something amiss in the air. He noticed the others looking at the roof where his hand was and thought he had been caught before he realized what they were saying. They thought there was a body pinned under that sword, genjutsu. And it's really strong. Who cast that illusion? He looked back over the edge to see the Shinigami all talking about the man, Captain Aizen Sosuke, being murdered and staring at the sword in the wall. They're still under the genjutsu, all of them. Should I try to break it? He asked himself, placing his hands in the ram seal, planning to force out enough chakra to completely break the illusion over everyone before stopping himself. No, all that would do would be to alert even the poorest Shinigami to my position, and these guys are all at least lieutenants. I can sense it. If it's strong enough to catch all of them, do I even have enough in me to break it? How was I never even under it? I suck at illusions. He closed his eyes. Something's not right. I can't stay here to think about it. I need to leave. XXX. Tsukyoku Hill Hideout. Oi! Yoruichi-chan. I'm back. Naruto yelled as he entered the hideout and noticed a bandaged Ichigo in bed and Yoruichi in human form. They both noticed him walk inside. My clone heard that Ichigo beat a captain. Way to go, kid. Yoruichi looked at him and smiled. Well, it appears that you did heal rather quickly. That's good. She blinked. Wait, how did you get up here? You can't use Ho-Ho to walk up here in the Seirei. Naruto nodded. I know, for some reason I can't use my gravity techniques to walk up here either or stick to walls. It's really hard to channel chakra in this place for some reason. Is it like that for everyone? Yes. Yoruichi said. The gates surrounding the Seirei prevent you from gathering reishi under your feet to walk on the air. But how did you get up here without me? Naruto grinned and flexed an arm. I climbed. Naruto looked at the mask on the ground near Ichigo's body and noted that it looked extremely familiar. What's with the mask? Yoruichi looked at Naruto seriously with her golden eyes exuding a serious aura. That's not important right now, Naruto. She looked at Ichigo and held up the glider wand. Anyway, this is how I got you up here. Ichigo took it from her hands and looked at it. So with this you just put your spiritual energy in this and fly? Yep. Yoruichi said proudly. It's a very unique, one-of-a-kind artifact. You should feel honored. How do you even have anything like this? Ichigo said somewhat accusingly. You shape-shift, you heal wounds, and you have something like this. Yoruichi, who are you? Naruto chimed in. I'll tell you. She's sexy. Be serious, you idiot. Ichigo shouted at Naruto. The conversation was broken when a massive oppressive aura set over everyone in the hideout. This Ryotsu. It's him, Ichigo said, getting the thought of the man who had defeated him in Karakura town and took Rukia in his mind. Naruto looked around as he clearly felt the power as well, but having fought Soifan last night, a captain's Ryotsu was something that he had gotten a taste of already. This is the guy that beat you in Karakura. I can see why he sleepwalked through you then. It's coming from the Senzaikyuu, Yoruichi said, wondering why Byakuya had felt the need to release so much power as a show of force when Ichigo stood up, charging for the exit. Where do you think you're going? Ichigo turned around and snapped at her. Hanataro and Ganju were going to the Senzaikyuu. If I don't go, then who's going to save them? He transformed the wand and flew off on the hang glider, leaving Naruto and Yoruichi alone in the hideout. That dumb brat! Yoruichi yelled in exasperation as she watched him fly off. Naruto sighed. Am I going to have to climb the rest of the way up now? Yoruichi ran a hand through her hair and paced around. We need to go get him, Naruto. Byakuya's going to slaughter him if he goes out as he is. You know it and I know it. How did he beat a captain? Naruto asked her. If he had fought Soifan, she would have killed him so fast it wouldn't have been funny. Yoruichi looked at him. He more or less outlasted the juggernaut captain of the Gotei 13. It was quite a battle, but that's not important. We need to stop him. Nodding in understanding, Naruto spoke as he walked with her. Yoruichi, I have to ask if you know anyone in the Seirei who uses illusions. We'll talk about it after we save Boy Wonder. Omake. Naruto alone in the Rukongai, day 3 of 46. Naruto still had a long way to go and decided to walk through the 55th district instead of motor on through for a short break, also because he was hungry. Man, I'm so hungry. He looked around to find somewhere to eat when a heavenly smell hit his nostrils. He sprinted over to a nearby stand, almost bowling over several people in the process, and threw back the curtain. 10 bowls of beef ramen and keep 'em coming. Naruto yelled cheerfully, his salvation found. Wow. The man behind the counter said, that's a lot of money. You got the cash to pay for that much food? Naruto immediately shoved a mass of bills in his face. I don't know what that is, but we don't use that currency. Naruto looked at the money in his hand before going wide-eyed. So I'm broke? No, I'm broke. I haven't been broke in forever, he cried, anime tears. The vendor shook his head apologetically. Sorry, no money, no food. Them's the breaks. Come back when you manage to scrounge something up. Naruto walked out of the stand, his stomach continuing to bitch him out about getting some food in it. What can I do to get money? I'm going to have to eat all the way to the gate, so a quick fix might not do it. He shoved his hands in his pockets and a light bulb went off in his head when he pulled out a notebook. I wonder. He fished through his inside coat pockets and pulled out a labeled scroll. Yes. I've still got all of my old manuscripts. Now I need to find a publisher and I'm made all over again. Day 7 of 46. Naruto sat next to 3 towering stacks of bowls as he polished off another. Oi! Fill it up again. I've got a demon in my belly and it demands more ramen. The vendor gleefully filled it up and handed it over. Whatever you say, Uzumaki-sama. So, he pulled out an orange book and held it in front of Naruto's face. Can I get your autograph? Naruto blinked and slurped up the noodle in his mouth. Man, this book sold like nobody's business. Soul Society has good print and distribution companies. He shrugged and happily signed it before returning to eating while the vendor ran outside quickly. Uzumaki Naruto is in my stand, eating my ramen and signing my book. Naruto heard the crowd outside break into a tizzy and formed a cross seal, depositing a clone of Naruto in the seat next to him. Stay here. Sign my autographs. Eat this guy's ramen. He said, holding the bowl he was still eating. I'm keeping this though. This is mine. The clone gave Naruto a hearty thumbs up. Sure thing, boss. He turned around and let Naruto slip out the back while the first mass of fans flew through the curtain holding up books and raving about the story. Okay, single file line. Hot women first. And in order of descending attractiveness. Then the men can get autographs if I still feel like it. Senzaiku. Bridge overlooking Tsukyoku. Ganju stood frozen staring out at a man in a captain's haori. He had long black hair and expensive-looking hair pieces that left a few strands draping over his face in bangs as well as a white scarf that drifted behind him in the wind. The calm look of control on the man's face as well as the staggering amount of energy flying off of him was extremely unnerving for Ganju. I felt some faint ryotsu heading towards the holding cell, the man said, calmly staring Ganju down as if he weren't a threat. I thought it was someone strong holding back their spiritual pressure, like the man that fought Soifan of the 2nd Division, but apparently it was nothing but a big fat bug. How dull. Rukia stood further back on the bridge closer to the tower she had been imprisoned in alongside a small, young, frail-looking male Shinigami. She tried moving forward but was stopped by the Shinigami with her, "Where are you going, Rukia-san?" Rukia tried pulling herself away. "Let go of me, Hanataro. If we don't stop this now then that man from the Shiba clan will die." She fell to the ground breathing heavily as Hanataro moved to help her. "I've been in that cell surrounded by Sekiseki, spirit-reducing stone, for so long. My Riryoku is at its weakest. I can't even handle Byakuya Nisama's Ryotsu." Hanataro put a hand on Rukia's shoulder. "It's okay, Rukia-san." Ganju-san walked so calmly into the confrontation. "He must have a secret plan that we couldn't think of. He has to," he said, voice full of belief. Ganju had a good game face, but it belied his true thoughts. Just standing here is taxing. His Ryotsu is really strong, damn it. With a difference in strength like this, a few petty little tricks won't do any good." He quickly lunged at his opponent and drew his cleaver blade. "I'm just going to have to take a gamble on this one." Rukia and Hanataro stared at Ganju who had just lunged at a Shinigami captain head-on in pure disbelief. No plan. Ganju drew his other hand back, revealing fireworks to use as a way to get closer and disorient. "Eat this." However, before he knew, Byakuya was behind him, having already slashed his arm without anyone even having seen it happen. "Be gone," Byakuya said stoically as the blood sprayed from the wound on Ganju's arm. "My sword was not made to kill pests like you," he said without even turning to face him, as if he had simply walked past and nothing more. Hearing Ganju hit the ground and cry out in pain, he kept walking towards Rukia and Hanataro until Ganju's voice stopped him. "Hold on." Byakuya turned around to see Ganju standing with one arm completely useless. "Are you deaf? I told you to leave." "Blah, blah, blah. You're so noisy with that old man demeanor of yours." Ganju shouted at him defiantly. "I don't know how it is with you nobles, but cowards that can be scared away by something like this don't exist in the Shiba clan." Byakuya turned around fully to face him. "So you're from the Shiba clan? My apologies for going easy on you." Rukia looked on fearfully as Byakuya drew his Zanpakuto. "I'll make sure that you don't walk away from this alive." Ganju looked at his curiously. "What are you going to do from so far away?" he asked. "Don't do it, Ni-sama," Rukia shouted to Byakuya to try and stop him. Byakuya held the sword directly up in front of his face. "Shire, Senbon Sakura, scatter, thousand cherry blossom." The blade of his sword disappeared into countless fragments that resembled cherry blossoms blowing away. "Run away!" Rukia shouted at Ganju. However, it was too late. Before he could move or knew what happened, he found himself cut to shreds by Byakuya's Zanpakuto release all over his body. The wounded man dropped to his knees as blood freely flew from his greatly wounded body. Hanataro looked at his fallen ally in horror. "Ganju-san," he said quietly. Byakuya turned abruptly and raised his sword at Hanataro, planning to aim his attack at him and prompting Rukia to throw herself in front of him. "Ni-sama, please stop, don't kill him." Before Byakuya could complete his motion, he found his sword arm held back by a man in a captain's haori with long white hair and a slightly frail appearance. "Oh, that was scary," he said with a disarming smile. "I think that's enough, don't you, Kuchiki Taiko?" Rukia looked at the new arrival in recognition, Yukataki Taiko. The man smiled at Rukia and gave her a friendly salute. "Oh Rukia, you've lost weight, how are you feeling?" "What is the meaning of this?" Byakuya said accusingly to the fellow captain. "That's what I should be saying," Yukataki replied. "Releasing a Zanpakuto in this area is a first-class offense, even if you are fighting the Ryoka. What were you thinking?" "You are misinformed, Yukataki Taiko," Byakuya said in a matter-of-factly manner. "It's a wartime situation. The ban on releasing a Zanpakuto was lifted to deal with the threat." "Wartime situation?" Yukataki exclaimed in shock. "How can an invasion of a few intruders end up like that? Is this related to the murder of Aizen?" He had heard of one of the Ryoka running amok all over the area the previous day, even hearing of how the 1st Division HQ was thoroughly painted multicolors and how thousands of issues of magazines depicting one of the attackers had been printed and distributed around the Saraiti, but it never seemed that serious to him until news of Aizen's death reached him that morning. The jury was still out on what had happened. All of a sudden a high-level Ryotsu settled on everyone conscious on the bridge. Yukataki found himself rather troubled with the sudden presence of such power. "What's this strong Ryotsu? It's at the level of a captain, but I don't recognize this person. Who is he? And where did he come from?" Rukia, however, felt the familiar traces of the power in the air. "This Ryotsu can't be. There's no way." Suddenly a figure flew past her at a high speed and stopped above her before landing next to her on the bridge, getting everyone's full attention. "Ichigo," she whispered to herself, almost not believing who was standing there. Ichigo walked past her. "Hanataro, are you okay? I didn't think you would run into another guy like this when I sent you ahead. Where's Ganju?" The smaller Shinigami pointed over to where Ganju's body lay. "I see." Ichigo finally turned to Rukia. "Rukia, I came to save you." However, her facial expression lay blank, as if she hadn't registered what he had said. "Why are you making that face?" "I said I came here to get you out of this." "You idiot," Rukia said as tears started springing to her eyes. "I told you not to come after me. I forbade you to come here. And now look at you, covered in wounds, you're all beat up, you dumbass." Ichigo looked back at where the two captains were standing. "You can get as mad as you want later, after I defeat him," he said, looking straight at Byakuya. "Ichigo." Rukia tried calling out to him to get him to stop. "And now you're probably going to tell me to run," he said, cutting her off from saying any more. "There's no way I'm doing that, don't make me laugh. It wasn't easy getting all the way here, you know." He looked back at Rukia. "No matter what you say, it won't make a difference. I'm dragging you out of here if I have to. So don't bother trying to get me to back down, idiot." "What?" Her shock was then replaced with outrage at how she had just been spoken to. "What the hell does that mean? What kind of weird rescue attempt is this?" "Shut up," Ichigo snapped back. "You're the one being rescued, so quit babbling. You should crouch in the corner, shiver in fear, and scream, 'Help, help.'" The two glared at each other until a smile came to Rukia's face. "You never changed, do you? You're still the same as before, never listening to anything I say." Ichigo turned his back to her to face Byakuya again. "Of course. You always nag and worry about me. You should worry more about yourself right now. But don't worry, I won't die yet," he said with a grin. "I've gotten way stronger while you were away." Yukataki was looking at Ichigo curiously. Byakuya, who is that? He's a nobody. The aristocratic Shinigami captain said in reply. Compared to the person laying behind you, he is not important. He's just a Ryoka that I am going to destroy. I'm ending this meaningless skirmish here. It all stops here. Ichigo smirked at Byakuya. Look at you standing there all carefree. You didn't even move forward while I was talking to Rukia for so long. Who do you think you're talking to? Byakuya said right back to the orange-haired savior. Why would I need to sneak up on the likes of you? Don't think too highly of yourself, insignificant scum. As a show of force, Byakuya flooded the bridge with his Ryotsu, enough to bring Rukia and Hanataro to their knees. Ichigo simply held Zangetsu out, prepared to fight. Byakuya said, mildly impressed by his resolve, not even a budge in front of this Ryotsu. It seems that you have indeed gained strength. I don't know how you got your Shinigami powers back, but you should have just returned to your normal human life, instead of throwing it away after so luckily keeping it. How foolish. I'm not throwing my life away, Ichigo said intently. I'm going to beat you and then I'm going home. I just said don't think so highly of yourself, insignificant scum. Byakuya said before vanishing via Shunpo. However, Ichigo blocked his strike at his back, keeping Byakuya from wounding or killing him with one move. You said I think too highly of myself. I saw every single step Kuchiki Byakuya, Ichigo said before throwing Byakuya away from himself and facing off one more. Byakuya narrowed his eyes at Ichigo. I see. You've improved more than I thought. Well, in that case, he held his unreleased Zanpakuto up in front of his face much like he had against Ganju. Before you start becoming too full of yourself, I'll have to show you what you can't compensate for in 1,000 years of training. The decisive difference in strength between us. Ichigo, run. Rukia screamed at him, not wanting Ichigo to share Ganju's fate. Chire. Before Byakuya could complete his release command, a cloth wrapped around his sword that was held by Yoruichi. Well, Shihuan Yoruichi. I haven't seen your face in a while. You disappeared for 100 years. Everyone thought you were dead. Yoruichi, thanks for coming to save me, Ichigo said, sword still brandished, but please move. I have to defeat him. Yoruichi let off a scoff. Defeat him? By yourself? She turned around and looked at him from one side of her face. Idiot. Before he could say anything, Naruto appeared behind him, wrapping one arm around his neck and his other hand through his bandages into the wound on his body. Naruto had a serious look on his face as Ichigo looked back at him in shock before shrugging. Best ninja ever. Naruto pulled his hand out and used it to catch Ichigo as he slumped forward, unconscious. Got him, Yoruichi-chan. It's a drug, isn't it? Yukitake questioned as he saw what Naruto had done, either Gaiden or Houten. Releasing a powerful tranquilizer into the body. You're here to save him. He then got a good look at Naruto and matched it with a description. Wait, you're the Ryoka that has been causing a ruckus all around the Seirei, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto hoisted Ichigo over a shoulder. Yep. Nice to meet you, you seem nice. He looked at Byakuya. He seems like he has a stick in his ass. So you're Kuchiki Byakuya. He stared at the man for a moment. You have a nice house. Byakuya simply stared at Naruto blankly. Yes, that was you that ruined the clothes of my clan, wasn't it? Naruto blinked. Now you can't prove that. You wrote, Uzumaki Naruto was here and did this in the ground outside. Byakuya countered, speaking plainly, you are a very unusual person. Naruto didn't immediately respond, simply staring at Byakuya before pointing at him. Are you related to someone named Uchiha or Hyuga? Because you look and act like the illegitimate love child of two people I used to know. Thought I don't want to know how they would have gone about making you. He said with a shiver before snapping his fingers. I've got it. You could be a clone. Byakuya for some reason felt a very strong desire to stab Naruto at the moment, and not just because he was a Ryoka. Naruto, focus. Yoruichi said, getting Naruto to stop joking around, as he immediately put his game face back on. Get ready to move. Yukitake spoke to Yoruichi. You're trying to save him, Yoruichi? Did you think that I would allow that, senpai? Byakuya said coolly. No, senpai. You won't be able to leave here freely. You are Uzumaki Naruto. Yoruichi smirked at Byakuya confidently. When did you learn to talk so big, Byakuya? Did you ever once beat me in a game of tag? Byakuya's gaze leveled on her. Should we try again then? He said before they both blurred from sight. Naruto's muscles tensed up to prepare to move in case he was attacked, but let Yoruichi handle it for now. Byakuya moved past Yoruichi and turned rapidly to swing his sword only to realize he had missed as Yoruichi had taken Ichigo's body from Naruto and had made to hop over the railing on the bridge. Yoruichi smirked, thinking she had him, until he appeared behind her. You can't escape me with that level of shunpo. He swung again at point-blank range, however this time Yoruichi dodged and hopped on his arm tauntingly, still holding Ichigo. You can't catch me with that level of shunpo. She suddenly blurred out of his range and reappeared atop the tower nearby. 3 days. In 3 days I'll make him stronger than you, she said, patting Ichigo who she was holding. This little fight is postponed until then. You can follow if you want to. But, Shunshin, Flash Goddess. Yoruichi won't be caught so easily, she said before blurring away. Byakuya turned around to confront Naruto, seeing him still standing there with his arms crossed and a bored look on his face. Finally. I thought you forgot about me. You didn't run. Byakuya said. He had completely forgotten Naruto had been there and Naruto hadn't attacked him either. He had simply waited. What are you here for? He said, planning to move on him and disable him quickly. Naruto grinned. I'm here for you to leave a message with. I'm not Naruto. The real Naruto was long gone while you were playing with Yoruichi-chan. I'm a clone. Killing me wouldn't do anything. It might make you feel better though. You're not a Shinigami. Yukatake said to the clone. You're not a Quincy like one of the other Ryoka that we've heard of either, but nor do you seem to be a regular human. What are you? The clone backed to the railing and leaned against it, his hands on the back of his head. I'm just your humble sage. Just traveling existence trying to find a balance. He looked at Rukia intently. Don't get comfortable. Boy Wonder's going to be back here for you soon enough. Just wait. And some advice. This beating yourself up for whatever reason shouldn't come into play when someone actually comes for you and shows you that you're worth the effort, because the way you want him to just run and leave you here is insulting. Later. The clone rolled back first over the railing and took the long fall. Byakuya and Yukatake both looked over the railing shortly after the clone's departure to see a cloud of smoke in midair, but no falling Naruto replica. Byakuya turned abruptly to leave the bridge, ignoring Hanataro and Rukia. Hey, where are you going, Byakuya? What about the others? Aren't they the reason you're here? I lost my interest, he replied disinterestedly as he walked away, not turning to face any of them. Do whatever you want with them. Yukatake scratched his head as he watched his fellow captain walk away. Ho, that guy always does whatever he wants at any given moment. He turned his attention to Rukia, who collapsed on the bridge, finally collapsed after the pressure suddenly lifted when Byakuya left. Can't blame her. He let out a sigh. What a bother, maybe I should just call for them? Oi, Sentaro, Kion, please come out. 2 Shinigami, 1. A petite girl with dark blonde hair and the collar of a white shirt peeking through the top of her Shinigami uniform, and a man with black hair, a white headband, white shoulder straps, and a goatee, appeared at Yukatake's side. You called Captain? The woman asked as both of them were bowing. Yukatake gave them both a dry look. So you were both here after all. How long were you both standing there? Since. Ho, that was scary. Yukatake Taiko. The man answered earnestly. So from the beginning, Yukatake said, an exasperated look on his face. Didn't I say that it was dangerous, so don't come? The man abruptly stood up and saluted him. I'm very, very sorry, but I respect you too much, Captain, and I couldn't help but follow you wherever you went, he said frantically. That was so cheap, Sentaro. The woman next to the saluting man said before turning to Yukatake. Captain, I feel the exact same way. Actually, I respect you even more. The two broke into bickering over who respected Yukatake more until the captain himself took control of the situation. All right, enough. Kion, contact the 4th Division right away. Someone here is gravely wounded here and we need a top-notch medic dispatched right away. He said to his female underling, Sentaro, please carry Rukia back into the prison. The man nodded and walked over to Rukia and Hanataro. Move aside, brat. I refuse, Hanataro said, trying to protect Rukia. I won't let Rukia-san be placed back in that prison. Get the hell out of the way, brat. Sentaro screamed at Hanataro, scaring the daylights out of the young man. Do you think I want to put her back in that damned place? He moved past him and picked up Rukia, carrying her back inside. Sorry, Kuchiki. Yukitake Taiko and I will definitely get you out of there. Just hang in there a bit longer. Kion followed after him to bicker some more, leaving Hanataro and Yukitake alone on the bridge with Ganju's body. With the young Shinigami unable to word his thoughts correctly. You're trying to ask me why I'm helping you too, aren't you? Yukitake ventured as a guess towards his intentions, getting a nod out of him. Of course I'd help. Until we figure out who murdered Aizen, you two are prime sources of information as well as top suspects, so I can't just let you die here. Furthermore, although it was completely half-assed and clumsy, you did try to rescue a member of my division. So of course I won't stand here and watch your friend die, he finished with a smile. XXX Yoruichi set Ichigo's body on the ground and took deep breaths of exhaustion after shutting a secret entrance to the hideout. Phew. It's got to be because I haven't had a real fight in 100 years, but I'm fighting so hard to catch my breath just after a few hundred shunpo steps. I'm sure a lot weaker. She slumped to the floor, sitting against the wall and looked at Ichigo's body. Wake up, Ichigo, so I can get you stronger. When you get up I'll tell you about Zanjetsu's true power, and a few secrets. Oi, Yoruichi-chan. Her attention turned to the cliff entrance. She got up and walked over to see Naruto hanging upside down in midair a short distance out from a place to safely drop. A little help here? Yoruichi blinked at him in puzzlement. How on earth did you end up like that? Naruto grinned at her. When you left I took advantage of all of the ruckus and ran towards the edge of that cliff. I tied some ninja wire to my feet so I could jump off and swing down here and anchored it with a kunai. Only I didn't see how far out from the cliff the hole was and now I'm here. He chuckled sheepishly. If I swing towards you, can you catch me and hold on so I can cut myself down? After getting back inside, Naruto relayed what he had done earlier that day and had seen, even up to the Shinigami that seemed to be under an illusion. Do you know any Shinigami with powers over illusions like that? She thought of it for a long while. It's been a long time and I never exactly took catalog of what everyone could do. I know from speaking with them personally in the past, Naruto, and powers like that are very rare. Anyway, we have something more important to worry about right now, like ourselves. She gestured towards the still unconscious Ichigo. I need to get him ready to fight Byakuya, and to do that I need to get him to activate his Bankai, final release. What's a Bankai? Naruto asked inquisitively, taking a seat next to her against the wall she had been sitting against at first. Is it really something that important, because that Byakuya guy was no joke? I thought you were going to make me fight him off when we went to go grab Boy Wonder here. I just got through fighting Soifan last night. 2 captains in less than 24 hours is not my idea of a good time if last night was any indication. Yoruichi smiled at him. Oh, you might have been able to take him, she said, playfully hitting him in the arm, and Bankai could be just what we need. The power it will give Ichigo is something that we can't overlook or go any further without. Not if we were to fight the captains that are being deployed to take us on now. Every captain with the exception of Zaraki Kenpachi has the ability to utilize Bankai, a power-up for their Zanpakuto past the level of Shikai. It's another Zanpakuto power? He asked. So Soifan had another move that she could have used during our fight. Why didn't she use it? Not that I'm complaining, because she hit hard enough without another power-up. He looked at his chest. This mark is still on my fucking chest. Why won't it go away? Yoruichi laughed at him. Looks like someone's still thinking about you. She teased in a sing-song voice. It's okay. It won't do anything as long as she doesn't touch it again, and she can't find you, so it should be fine. It's impressive though. It's been at least 12 hours and it's still on. When I was here she could only will it to hold for 30 minutes. Naruto poked at his chest. I don't see what's so funny. If she touches this thing again I will die. He shouted at the dark-skinned beauty. Why won't she be able to find me? If I know her. First of all, after last night she's going to be pissed. Second of all, if she's anything like me, she is not going to accept the end of that fight the way that it ended. She's going to be looking for me. Doesn't this thing act like a beacon or something? Yoruichi shook her head. No, and she won't be looking for you either because you beat her up pretty bad and she doesn't have your freakish, scary ability to heal. So that means she went to the 4th division for treatment. By now Naruto knew that the 4th division were the medics of the Seirei, the healers. And nothing about what Yoruichi just said sounded good to him at all. And this is going to keep her from running right out and hunting my sexy blonde ass down. Why? He said incredulously, if it was me I would jump right out as soon as I could walk without a limp. Yoruichi gave him a knowing grin. Let's just say that you're safe and leave it at that, Naruto. Trust me, Soifan isn't going to be out and about for a while, and she sure won't be out looking for you. Naruto looked at her in confusion before smacking his lips and simply asking his question, why? XXX. 4th Division Headquarters, Medical Bay. Soifan was fighting back a burning desire to sneeze repeatedly as she hastily put her uniform back on, feeling she had to follow up on her battle last night with Uzumaki. Naruto. He won't get away from me. How far could he have gotten? All I have to do is find him again and finish him off. Where do you think you're going, Taiko? A rather calm, soothing voice stopped Soifan in her tracks as she had gotten to putting on her sandals. She turned almost mechanically towards the door of her room and found the captain of the 4th division, Unohana Retsu, standing there giving her a beautiful smile. She was a beautiful woman that had long black hair worn in a single braid in the front and blue eyes. In addition to the usual Captain Shinigami outfit, she wore an obi instead of the usual sash that the others wore. Soifan slowly started trying to place her sandal on her foot, never taking a wary eye off of the captain of the medical squad. I need to get back out and find the dangerous Ryoka Uzumaki, Naruto. I fought him last night and he has to be out there somewhere, still wounded. He couldn't have gotten far. Unohana shook her head. I haven't released you or cleared you for duty yet, Taiko. We already have one captain deceased and another in worse condition than you. I would like to not lose any more high-ranking officers just to let them go chasing after one Ryoka. That's why I have to go after him. Soifan insisted vehemently. This Ryoka has demonstrated skills in infiltration, sabotage, and assassination that at the very least reach my own level. For all we know, he could have been the one that murdered Aizen, Taiko, and he's still out there. Any one of the other high-ranking Shinigami could be next unless someone stops him, and none of you would be able to do so. You mean this Uzumaki, Naruto? Unohana said, producing a magazine with the cover emblazoned with Naruto's grinning face, blown up to fill the page. Somehow these found their way all over the Seirei yesterday. For being a completely narcissistic, self-gratifying piece meant to be a joke, it's surprisingly well written and entertaining. Huh, did you know that he's an author? That must be why. Soifan looked at the magazine in her hand with a twitching eye. The fact that he infiltrated the HQ necessary to even make that proves my point. He's dangerous, Unohana, Taiko. He plays the clown, but in battle he's a killer, don't be fooled. Be that as it may, she said, putting the magazine up, you won't be hunting for him until you're cleared, so please put your hospital clothing back on and get back into bed, please. Unohana's smile told one story, but the presence she was generating and the aura permeating the room prompted Soifan to falter and slowly do as she asked, dropping the tense atmosphere significantly. Thank you, Soifan, Taiko. Honestly, despite his rowdy demeanor and attitude, Zaraki Taiko is a better patient than the rest of you. Soifan said nothing as she slid back into her bed. That's probably because he isn't even awake yet and you scare us all half to death when we're in the hospital. As much as he's here, he probably knows better by now. Barbarian or not. She blinked in confusion when the magazine was placed on her bed and looked up at Unohana. So that you don't get bored, Unohana said as she exited the room, leaving Soifan alone. Soifan glared at the magazine before the silence of the room and the fact that she couldn't even get up to meditate got to her. Know your enemy, I guess, she said to herself as she flipped it open and began to read. XXX. A while later. Tsukioku Hill Hideout. Where are you going? Yoruichi asked Naruto as she saw him walking towards the cliffside entrance to the hideout. Naruto rolled his shoulder joint in an effort to stretch. You don't need me here to teach the kid Bankai, do you? I mean, I don't know anything about how you're going to train him, but I doubt I'll be any use unless you want me to fight him. She looked down at the young Shinigami who had yet to awaken. No, I guess I don't need you to teach him Bankai. But I do need you here. You haven't come face to face with an opponent using Bankai before, and I should tell you now, it increases their strength 5 to 10 times higher than it previously was. Naruto's eyes hardened, 10 times stronger, and again I ask, why didn't Soifan use Bankai to try and kill me? Yoruichi shrugged. I'm not even carrying my Zanpakuto with me because I would rather use my hands. It's not that much of a stretch to say that she wouldn't like using it. Soifan isn't a flashy fighter, so her Bankai must go against her style of fighting. Others are usually luckier with their Bankai as it will go with their style of fighting, but none of them should be taken lightly. You should be here to witness it if he achieves it, so that you will not have the experience just thrown at you and you can at least learn the amount of Ryotsu that a full release can generate. More powers, huh? Naruto said to her as he began to walk over to Ichigo. Well, I still have a boatload of moves that you haven't seen yet, Yoruichi-chan. Please don't underestimate me and think me weak. I think I'm getting used to the whole idea of fighting these Shinigami. Old soldiers like me always have a couple of tricks up our sleeves. He kicked Ichigo and left his body as he began to stir. So now where are you going? Yoruichi asked as he walked further into the hideout, towards the large training area. I can't leave apparently to do some more work. So I'm going to go make sure something I set up earlier works for when I'll need it, he said as he got further and further away. Wonder Boy's awake and he looks rather pissed. Yoruichi looked down at Ichigo, who was looking at her angrily before letting out a sigh. Well, I guess it's time to explain Bankai and hope he isn't brick-headed enough to think he can win without it. XXX. Later that night, Naruto happily deposited himself into a hot spring, throwing his hands up behind his head in order to relax. Well, I don't know about you, Wonder Boy, but my training went great. I'm done. So all we're doing is waiting on you and your giant butcher's knife to get to Bankai and we can go save your friend. Ichigo, still having not forgiven Naruto for shoving his hand into his wound earlier that day, leveled a glare on the shinobi. Well, wonderful for you. My Zanpakuto is a slave driver and is trying to kill me. He looked up at the ceiling. This is a good spring though. Though I can't even tell whether it's day or night. You think I can do it? Get my Bankai? It's up to you, Naruto said, sighing in comfort with his eyes closed and his head tilted back. It's about how bad you really want it. Nothing I can say is going to push you if you really don't have it in you to fight. He went silent for a second before speaking again. Is there a butterfly mark still on my chest? Yeah. Ichigo said before looking at it and paying attention to it. I thought it was a tattoo or something. It looks gay actually. Naruto let out a groan. I know, it's a fucking butterfly. Would it make it any better if I said a girl gave it to me? He looked down at it. Well, at least I'm on her mind, he said absently with a smile. She's so hot, she's a captain, and she'd totally kill you in like 5 minutes. Hell, Yoruichi would kill you in like 3 minutes. You better get that Bankai in a hurry now. Ichigo glared at him. Hey, I already beat a captain. You didn't. You fought to a draw. Naruto chuckled. I wasn't trying to kill her. You were trying to kill your opponent. Hell, I heard the guy handicapped himself and you still only fought him to a draw, because if Yoruichi had to pick you up off the field and bring you here afterwards while you were out of it, you sure didn't beat him. Ichigo growled at Naruto as he took that as a challenge. With the day he had been having thus far, he really wasn't in the mood for any smarmy remarks. You think you can take me? Naruto gave him a confident smile. With my bare hands. You're 500 years too soon to step up to me. I've forgotten more about fighting than you're ever going to learn. Tell me, would you pick a fight with Yoruichi-chan? No, Ichigo responded. The woman was teaching him something that he didn't even know yet and knew more about Shinigami and the Soul Society in general than him. A combination of those things told him he wasn't going to win a fight with her. But you're not her. You're some guy. Naruto shook his head. Really? Because I'd pick a fight with Yoruichi-chan right here right now and feel pretty damn good about it were it not for the fact that my desire to have her fall madly in love with me greatly outweighs my desire to assert my dominance over someone strong. Unless that would get me a step closer to achieving the former, in which case I need to find her right now and call her out. He noticed Ichigo roll his eyes. What, you don't think Yoruichi is awesome? You're out of your rabbit-ass mind. She's a Shinigami and I'm a human. It doesn't matter what I think about her. Ichigo said resolutely. Besides, she's so much older than us. Older than you? Naruto accentuated to prove his point. I ain't no Shinigami, but I'm older than her. I can safely say that she's nowhere near my age, so I couldn't care less about that. And far as I've seen, the only difference between a soul and a human is the lifespan, which means that to me, there is no difference. He noticed Ichigo looking at him oddly. Oh, I didn't tell you yet. I'm immortal. Don't go spreading that around back in the world of the living. Ichigo just stared at him before throwing his hands in the air abruptly. You know what? I'm not even going to call you out on that, because let me tell you about what I've been doing. I fought a berserker that almost cleaved me in half about 30 times. Had a bonding moment with my Zanpakuto. Got rescued by our cat guide, who I found out is not only female but transformed into a grown woman who appeared in front of me stark naked. Flew off on some kind of hang glider. Got within arm's reach of the person I came here to save, but then had to leave because the naked woman from before showed up and let some weird blonde guy shove his arm into my stomach and knock me out. I then realized that my sword has a second super powerful form, and to get it I have to fight the spirit of my sword and find the right sword that is actually my Zanpakuto's true form. And my Zanpakuto spirit is mean as hell. So yeah, hearing that you're immortal is huge, but with everything else going on I might as well not care. Man, this is one hell of a summer vacation. Naruto just sat in the water looking at Ichigo. Feel good to let all of that out? Ichigo nodded, taking a calming deep breath. Good, because that took so long. If I weren't immortal I'd be pissed that you took up so much of my time just now. Mind if I join you? Yoruichi's voice reached both Ichigo and Naruto's ears as she came into sight, beginning to remove her clothes. Yes, go away. No, come on in, both Ichigo and Naruto said respectively. I'm coming in. Naruto pumped his fist in victory while Ichigo looked away until he heard Naruto groan in disappointment, and he allowed himself to look to see that Yoruichi was in her cat form swimming around. She smirked when she heard Ichigo exhale in relief. You lecher, you were really disappointed that you didn't see me naked. I call Naruto a pervert, but you're just as bad as him. At least he doesn't try to be something he's not. Ichigo glared at her as she kept swimming around. Don't make me drown you. So how was your training? She asked them both, making conversation with them. Naruto pointed a fist at Yoruichi and grinned. I'm good to go, Yoruichi-chan. Just say the word and I'm ready for action. The cat woman looked at him inquisitively. What is it that you were doing? All I saw you doing was just sitting still over by yourself, surrounded by two of your clones doing the same thing like some kind of guru. Naruto wagged his finger. Sage, actually. And I can't tell you until I actually have to use it. Yoruichi gave him a deadpan look. Fine, I'll just make you use it the next time we fight. Naruto winked at her and she turned her attention to Ichigo. So how about you? What do you think of your training? Ichigo scratched his scalp. It's rough, and I can't tell if I'm any closer or not. Man, Getaboshi sure put some work into that doll you made me put Zanjetsu's spirit into. And he made this entire place too. He sure did. She said, he built this place as a playground when we were kids and we would train here later. When he joined the Gotei 13 and I entered the Onmitsukido, she swam around and passed him. Ichigo turned to ask her a question when he abruptly turned back around. Why did you transform back into your human form? He asked, getting flustered at seeing her naked. She's covered by the water, Wonder Boy. Naruto said with a grin at seeing his reaction. You've got some things to experience in life, kid. Stop taking everything so seriously. You aren't in a fight. You're in a comforting bath surrounded by friends, one of whom is a hot woman. Turning to look at Naruto to keep his eyes from drifting to Yoruichi, who kept finding his reactions at her transformations amusing, Ichigo glared at him. You take things too lightly. We're in the middle of a battle with tons of Shinigami that want to kill us, and all I've seen you do is joke and laugh at everything. How strong can you be? Naruto's grin dropped. You're lucky Yoruichi-chan wants you in one piece so you can learn your Bankai. Otherwise I'd be dragging you out of this spring over to the training field and showing you what's what. If I took everything seriously and looked at the world the way you do, I would have driven myself insane a long time ago. Existence is a horrible, ugly thing, and just when you think you've seen all of the heinous stuff that people can come up with, something else even worse comes along. If I don't keep an upbeat outlook on everything with the way that the world is, I couldn't take it. I just don't know what I would do. Ichigo's eyes widened. What are you talking about? Naruto sighed and rubbed his temple. You know, the only reason I fought those hollows when we met was because I was actually around while they were attacking? If hadn't been there and I had just heard about what had happened, I don't think I would have tried doing anything. He noticed Yoruichi and Ichigo both looking at him, listening to his every word now. People and hollows, they really aren't that different. Hollows kill people and eat their souls. Well, at least that serves a purpose. I've saved people, entire groups of people, and then had to turn around and see or hear about those people I saved killing another group of people. Humans and hollows both have the same capacity for committing evil, and I'm certain that Shinigami do too. He noticed that neither Yoruichi nor Ichigo had said anything to him and felt that the atmosphere had been killed. I'm getting out, he said, moving to leave the hot spring. Wonder Boy is probably going to want to get out soon so that he can keep getting his ass kicked tomorrow. He still needs Bankai. Naruto wrapped a towel around his waist and walked away. XXX. Later that night, Ichigo went back to training with Zangetsu after the time in the hot spring, feeling refreshed and ready for action, continuing to fight his sword spirit while still searching for his Bankai's true form. Naruto was incredibly grateful that this place underneath Tsukyoku Hill was so large, because he didn't want to have to be near Ichigo or Yoruichi and answer any questions or even talk about what he had just gotten through saying to them at the bath. It was his own problem. It had always been his problem, and it always would be his problem, since he was the only one that would ever stay alive long enough to care or even have a chance of doing anything about it. Thousands of years and the time still hasn't come where people truly understand each other. Most of the time it's like no one even seems to try. And now there's all of this stuff about Shinigami too. He thought to himself inside of his bedroll. The ceiling of the training area, just like at Urahara's place or at the Vizard's warehouse, always depicted a sunny day, so he never knew what time it was. His internal clock was screwed. Hey, he heard Yoruichi say from nearby, are you feeling alright? Naruto sat up and nodded at her. Yeah, I just can't sleep. So Ichigo's gotten back to work on his Bankai. Yoruichi nodded. Why are you here and not there helping him? Yoruichi frowned and sat down close to Naruto, because only he can do it for himself. There's not a whole lot I can do except force him to take a break every now and then, and Zangetsu usually does that himself. She put a hand on his shoulder. Do you want to talk about anything? Naruto chuckled. Yoruichi-chan, you don't have enough free time to listen to all of my problems. It's alright. I've been dealing with my own stuff alone for countless years. Just worry about Wonder Boy and getting him and his friends out alive. And what about you? She shot back at him. If we're worrying about ourselves and you're worrying about us too, then who's going to worry about you? You say this like you don't expect me to try and help you with your problems. I'm the entire reason you're here. Immortal or not, you're still a human and you're still my responsibility. If your mind isn't right, it might get you killed when the time comes to fight. Naruto shook his head before Yoruichi gave him a stern look that told him he wasn't being given an option. You want to know something I've come to learn? I have a dream that seems totally impossible, to bring peace to the world, and I've only come up with a way to make it work some of the time. It's not about changing the world, Yoruichi-chan. The status quo brings about the most peaceful eras I've ever seen. Changing the world causes panic and strife, and anger, and fear, which leads to conflict. So it's not about changing the world, it's about doing your best to keep the world just the way it is. Less life is lost that way. He turned his head and looked at her. You know. Yoruichi shook her head and put a small smile on her face. You know, when you say stuff like that it makes me really believe that you've been around for as long as you keep implying you have. Because only an old man could say something that sounds so profound, confusing, and totally out of place. Naruto started laughing at her response, wiping a tear of humor from his eye. Ah, I needed that. He lay back down in his bedroll and looked up at the ceiling. Every now and then I need to let off a little steam. I'm fine now, what do I have to worry about? As long as I stay alive I'll have all the time in the world to work out an answer, and I won't stop until I do. It was a promise. And I always keep my promises. He felt Yoruichi crawl into the bedroll with him and drape herself atop him, placing her head on his chest. Yoruichi-chan? Shut up, Naruto. She said, pulling herself close. I've got nothing to do. Ichigo is training, and you look like you could use a friend. My friends die. Naruto remarked, even when I keep them alive they still die and time doesn't pass for me at all. Yoruichi rolled her eyes. Well, this one isn't going anywhere for a long time. The advantages of being a Shinigami, you know. She looked up at him with her golden eyes. You grope me or do anything that I don't say is okay and I'll tear you apart. Got it. Naruto said quickly to quell any misgivings she may have had with doing this. He may have been a pervert, but that was something he developed out of boredom and loneliness over a long period of time. Would holding you get me killed? He asked. No, it wouldn't. She said, prompting Naruto to wrap his arms around her, pulling them closer. Would trying to fall asleep right now get me killed? He asked her next. What else are you going to do? You're not leaving until Ichigo gets Bankai and you told me that you were ready for the battle. Sleep. You're going to need all the rest you can get. She said, shutting her eyes to catch some sleep as well. She hadn't gotten any since before getting Naruto away from the aftermath of his fight with Soifan. Naruto nodded and decided at that moment to plant a kiss on her forehead, getting Yoruichi to look at him in surprise. What the hell? Naruto shut his eyes. Sometimes it's easier to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission when it's something that you really want. Yoruichi looked at the blonde in confusion. Something you really want? Naruto cracked an eye. Yoruichi-chan, you're the first friend I've decided to try and make in 1,000 years. She looked at him in shock. I've had acquaintances, but everyone I meet dies, so I stopped getting too close to people. I just kept moving and traveling, never returning until too much time had passed and they forgot about me or died. Stupid. She mumbled lowly to him. Maybe that's why you seem to be so insane to me and others. Because you've only had yourself to deal with for so long. I know being around you for too long would make me go crazy, she said before putting a soft kiss on his lips. Don't be that kind of person that tries to do everything on their own. There will always be someone willing to help you. And I don't want to hear any of your nonsense about me dying before you or something like that. Naruto Oji-san. She lay her head back down on his chest. Whatever you say, Naruto said, closing his eyes once more to sleep. Yoruichi Obachan. He yawned out, grinning when he felt her hit him in the ribs. The two settled into a comfortable silence as the only sounds were the sounds of Ichigo locked in combat with Zangetsu. This doesn't leave the cave. Why? You embarrassed? Or is there someone else? Gasp, it's Urahara, isn't it? That's it, right? Naruto, shut up and go to sleep. I can't sleep. Not with this question burning in my mind. Now who is it? Oh wait, I know, it's why you didn't want me to kill her. It's Soifan, isn't it? That's so hot. Maybe that should go into the book? Thwack. Good night, Naruto. The mental image was worth it. Yes, I'm sure that it was. XXX, the next day. Naruto sat on a tall rock in a seated meditative position as Yoruichi stood next to him watching Ichigo fight in an open area full of blades of all different shapes, sizes, and makes. Naruto let out a whistle. Ichigo was right. His Zanpakuto spirit is mean. Look at all of these swords. Unless he can sense which one it is, it's a total pick-em trying to find his blade. He saw Ichigo getting the better of Zangetsu until his blade shattered, forcing him to search for another. He's getting better though. This kid's got a good fight IQ. Yoruichi nodded. It's a shortcut, Naruto. It's going to be harder than doing it the long way. That would take 10 years. We were lucky that we got that extension when we first came to the Soul Society. It knocked us a few days back, giving us this extra time to train him. Still, this isn't about improving his fighting prowess. His spiritual growth isn't improving as quickly as his combat skill. That's bad, right? Naruto asked, flinching slightly when he saw Ichigo get thrown into the face of a rock outcropping. Yes, Yoruichi replied, slightly worried. If Ichigo can't pull his Bankai in 3 days, it might be too dangerous for his soul to survive. I need to give it another day. She let out a sigh as Ichigo picked up a new sword and charged right back into battle with Zangetsu. I need to do something to occupy my time. Want to fight again? Naruto offered helpfully. I'm 100% again, and there's no such thing as too much preparation. We can even go light so we don't beat each other senseless, just go through the motions. She looked over at him before looking back at Ichigo. I really can't. I have to keep overseeing his training. How will he even know when he finds the right sword? Naruto asked, seeing as how Ichigo had gone through a dozen swords in the last 3 minutes. Oh, he'll know. We'll all know. Yoruichi insisted before narrowing her eyes and looking around. Do you feel that? She asked, alerting Naruto to the change in her attitude. I think someone's. The hidden entrance to the training ground exploded open. Huh. You actually have to hide to do your Bankai training. From the dust of the destroyed entrance, walked Abarai Renji, holding his Zanpakuto in Shikai form. Naruto appeared in front of Renji in a burst of wind and leaves and stood with his arms crossed. I have no idea how you actually found us, but you can't leave now. You understand, right? Yoruichi appeared beside Naruto and walked in front of him, keeping him from attempting anything. Down, boy. Naruto growled at being compared to a dog. Any particular reason you're here? Or should I let Naruto loose? He's been rather bored lately. Renji walked further into the training ground. Relax, I'm not here to fight. My problem isn't with Kurosaki anymore. I'm here to finish my own Bankai training too. I'm actually close. He turned his head towards Naruto and Yoruichi, and you might want to inform Kurosaki of something. Rukia's execution date has been moved up. It's now tomorrow at noon. Naruto and Yoruichi looked at each other before holding out their hands and playing a quick game of rock paper scissors, which Naruto lost. Damn it, fine. I'll go tell Boy Wonder the bad news. Omake. Naruto alone in the Rukongai, day 13 of 46. Naruto had finally made it to the first district on the east side of the Soul Society. He smiled as he saw the area that looked radically different from the districts he had been used to seeing. Naruto rubbed his hands together in anticipation. Okay, time to infiltrate. Naruto sprinted over to the area designated as the Seirei. However, a massive gate dropped from the sky and almost crushed him. What the hell? That almost hit me. So there's one fool that desires to infiltrate the Seirei. Fool. The dust kicked up from the falling gate cleared to reveal an obscenely large man with very prominent teeth, a 4-points mustache, Gotei combination and long black hair, spiky going down his back. It's just one little man. Very well then, it's been a long time since anyone has tried breaking into this place. I am the guardian of the eastern gate of the Seirei, Kaiwan. And I will be your executioner. No, Naruto said, setting himself into a fighting stance. Today, you're going to be my doorman, because I'm going to kick your ass and make you open this gate for me. Insolence. Kaiwan roared at Naruto in anger. I would die before I open this gate for you. He ran forward at Naruto with his fist drawn back. I'll crush you in one punch, you puny bastard. Naruto bounced lightly on his toes and waited for Kaiwan to throw his punch. Naruto jumped over it as it smashed into the ground, breaking up the surface. He landed on the fist and swiftly ran up Kaiwan's arm before he could draw it back and kicked him right in the side of the head, sending him spilling against the gate, rattled from the surprisingly strong invader. Open the gate and I'll stop beating the shit out of you, big man, Naruto said, tapping his foot impatiently. I've beaten guys bigger than you and with more power. You're too slow. He heard Kaiwan growl and took that as his decision. Okay, whatever you want. Kaiwan came at Naruto, lifting his hands overhead for a double-handed smash while Naruto made hand seals. Raiden. Gion, lightning release. False darkness. A bolt of lightning in the shape of a jagged spear shot from Naruto's mouth and hit Kaiwan in the upper right part of his chest, ripping right through his body, getting a breathless gasp from the giant before he stumbled back against the gate and slumped to the ground. Such power. Naruto looked at Kaiwan apologetically. Sorry. I forgot how strong that one was. Are you going to be alright? Can you open the gate? Kaiwan gasped for breath and glared at Naruto. I would never open the gate and allow an intruder into the Seirei. You'll have to kill me, invader. Naruto frowned. But then if I kill you, who's going to open the gate? Look at that thing. I can't lift that thing up. He shrugged. Fine. I don't need you to open it. I'll just go over it. Naruto ran at the wall and tried sticking his feet to it to begin running up the side, but ended up slipping off and falling on his head. What the hell? Kaiwan laughed. There's a barrier surrounding the Seirei keeping others from getting in easily by jumping over the gate or going under. The only way in is through the doors themselves. He continued to laugh until he passed out from his wounds. Oi! Naruto shouted, jumping on the giant's shoulder and slapping him across the face. Get up and open this gate. Hey! He jumped off and sighed before walking back to town. Well, isn't that just great? And where the hell is everyone else? This it for today, guys. This was the part 2 of What If Naruto Was Immortal Naruto X Bleach. Stay tuned for more.